everybody, I'm Matt Camp, and welcome to the special edition of The Wrestling Mat. And if you don't know already, you could become a member at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Maybe you're a member already with us. You are a Mat member. I thank you for that. But if you're not yet, and why wouldn't you be? Go check out thewrestlingmatshow.com or click below right here. And you can certainly join us here at The Wrestling Mat and become a member. Find out all the great benefits that you get as a result of being a member. Join us for some very special events and some bonus content, kind of like what you're getting here today. And it is me here at The Wrestling Mat. You can always visit us at thewrestlingmatshow.com. But it's a special edition of The Wrestling Mat because today, in honor of the man retiring next year, and we have discussed this on a recent episode of The Wrestling Mat, I'm going to give you my top 5 John Cena matches of all time. Not an easy list to pare down. A man who has had an amazing career, which will come to a close in 2025. But how do you pare it down? Well, I have my top 5 matches, but before we get into those, let's give you the honorable mentions. First of all, John Cena RVD for the WWE Championship at One Night Stand 2. A show that I made every effort to watch live because I had to see RVD win the title. As we know, maybe the most famous match in terms of how the arena changed the match. There's another match on here that you're going to hear later on where the arena and the atmosphere comes into play. But I think the arena, the Hammerstein Ballroom, the venue, I should say, not even an arena, the venue, the Hammerstein Ballroom, the crowd being such an fiercely pro RVD crowd wanting to see him win the title. The famous banner of Cena wins, we riot. An unbelievable atmosphere. I don't know if it'll ever be matched in terms of not the excitement, but the vitriol towards John Cena. Just the absolute hate, and he soaked it in beautifully. It is fantastic. It is a match where RVD finally gets to a place that people never thought he would get to. Yes, Edge is involved. Yes, there's a ref bump. Cena gets mad in the match. All kinds of stuff. His shirt gets thrown back, all that stuff. And obviously at the end, RVD gets the win. Great atmosphere. I had a real hard time keeping this out of the top 5. I'm going to put John Cena and Edge on here from TLC at Unforgiven 2006. They had a great run of matches, different gimmick matches. They each won and lost in their hometown. And here was another example of that with John Cena winning in Toronto, obviously where Edge was from. A great feud that I think is one of the most important of John Cena's history and the most important of Edge's history. The Raw before WrestleMania 29, or shortly before WrestleMania 29, February 25th, 2013, John Cena taking on CM Punk. Who would move on? Punk never got what he wanted, never got into that three-way with John Cena and with The Rock, and here was the chance to do so. And these two, who had great matches before, and as you might guess, it's going to come up a little bit later on, their most famous match, but they had an absolute banger of a match. And I don't like using that term because it gets overused, but this is that good. Punk, as we know, is out of the company about a year after this, but they go back and forth. This is the famous pile driver when it was banned. Punk got in trouble for it. You can hear the call on commentary, how shocked they were that it even happened. Cena does the Hurricane Rana here, but he defends his right to face The Rock for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 29. Punk, of course, would go on to face The Undertaker in the best match of that show, but these two clearly had chemistry. Two guys you can't write their stories without mentioning the other. John Cena and Punk, go check it out. February 25th, 2013, leading into WrestleMania 29, a great singles matchup. John Cena and Kevin Owens, Elimination Chamber 2015. These two had some great battles. Cena probably won too many of them, but this was the one where Kevin Owens answers the U.S. Championship challenge of John Cena, but not for the title. He did it as the NXT champion, and he would go on to defeat John Cena. It made Kevin Owens in one night. Yes, Cena would beat him a couple times after that, but this made Kevin Owens. He looked every bit the part, and a rare occasion where I don't think the company missed with John Cena putting over somebody new. Often, he'd win feuds, and if he lost, he'd lose in a weird way, or there'd be distraction or some way, shape, or form. He lost straight up to Kevin Owens at Elimination Chamber 2015, and I think it set Kevin Owens on the path that has kept him in WWE for the last 10 years, typically at the top of the card. This will be a controversial one to leave off the top 5, although these two men will be represented later on. But I put John Cena, AJ Styles just outside the top 5. Royal Rumble 2017. Outstanding match. I mean, unreal. This is not the first time they had faced off. Cena wins the title at this one, would go on to lose that championship to Bray Wyatt the next month Elimination Chamber, at a time when I don't think Bray was likely someone that people thought would become WWE champion. Obviously, that fell apart with the stuff with Randy Orton at WrestleMania and the bugs and all that stuff. But John Cena and AJ Styles had chemistry from the jump. We're going to get into more of Cena and AJ Styles with a previous match, one that I like a little bit more, but this is a masterpiece. This is also a masterpiece that you have to put into the context of AJ had already defeated Cena twice, so Cena gets it back. But I'm going to tell you something a little bit later on in this video about why I don't think those two could be done if done correctly. Stay tuned for that later on. One more, and I was at this one. John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, Royal Rumble 2015 triple threat match. This is the night where The Rock wins the Royal Rumble. When Roman Reigns wins the Royal Rumble with The Rock's help, and a chorus of boos in Philadelphia. This one didn't get booed. This is an absolute masterpiece of a triple threat match. Also, famously, one of the last times, WWE would use the big monitors as opposed to the skinny ones. Brock got destroyed by that. Everything that went down in that matchup made everybody look really good, but Brock fighting his way back and fighting his way into that victory, obviously setting up him and Roman for WrestleMania that year. But Cena, Brock, and Seth worked their butts off in this one. Royal Rumble 2015 triple threat match for the WWE Championship. Okay, those are the honorable mentions. Now let's get to the top 5. We're going to start this one with a man that John Cena will eventually join in the Hall of Fame, a 2-time Hall of Famer. This is not a pay-per-view match. This is the only match I'm going to mention outside of the Punk Cena match on Raw. That is not a pay-per-view match on the top 5, and that is Monday Night Raw, April 23rd, 2007. 3 weeks after WrestleMania 23, we get a rematch of the WrestleMania 23 title match between John Cena and Shawn Michaels. Now remember, Cena versus Triple H was going to happen, but Triple H tore his quad in a match against Rated RKO. So what happened? Well, Cena would have to fend against Shawn Michaels instead at WrestleMania. A solid feud, nothing spectacular. Obviously, you have to make do with what happened with Triple H going down, but it was going to be a rematch the year before when Cena defeated Triple H. It was not the case. And Cena and Shawn Michaels go at it again. But this time they do so 3 weeks after WrestleMania 23, a night Cena had won. And they are the tag team champions at the time, which is part of the story. They go 55 minutes in London. Back then, and not as much the case now, a lot of those shows, because they were taped, would be a little bit more wrestling heavy. The fans would be far more into it. The fans would be a bigger part of the matches. I think Raws and TVs that are done overseas are taped pretty normally now for the most part. Although you have instances like Backlash from last year in Puerto Rico where, they played to the crowd more. London got a match that they deserved, that they lived up to in terms of their fan reaction to this one. And Shawn beat Cena with the super kick after 55 minutes, getting the win back in a way. This was a non-title match, interestingly enough, but it's a special one. It is an absolute Matt classic. 55 minutes on Monday Night Raw. Yes, there's commercial breaks, but go out of your way to watch this one. As maybe you're starting to think, getting a little nostalgic for John Cena, for his career coming to a close in 2025. If you're looking for something to watch and just want to watch a damn good wrestling match, number 5 on our list, John Cena, Shawn Michaels from Raw, February 23rd, 2007. 55 minutes of fantastic bell-to-bell action and a great example of two guys who are very different, while both baby faces work in completely different ways, sold in different ways, presented themselves in different ways, but they meshed, and sometimes styles clashing and being so different is what brings them together in such a beautiful way. And that happened in this match between John Cena and Shawn Michaels. Raw, April 23rd, 2007, number 5 on our list. That brings us to number 4 and a completely different match that happened earlier in the same year. Totally different opponent, totally different type of match. I bring you back to Royal Rumble 2007, a last man standing match for the WWE Championship. John Cena against Umaga. It is 23 minutes of chaos and violence and brilliance. There's blood. It is not a match you would see from Cena as the years would go by because of the PG stuff and all that. And, this is a great old school matchup of the babyface overcoming a monster heel. Hulk Hogan made his name doing that. And the big men he had to face along the way. King Kong Bundy, Earthquake, Big Boss Man, Andre the Giant. And the list goes on and on and on. And sometimes it's an unstoppable monster that you have to handle. It is old school wrestling booking where you put your white meat babyface up against a heel that doesn't look like anyone can stop them, that has no remorse, that usually has a manager with him. Maybe it was Hogan dealing with Bobby Heenan back in the day. In this case, obviously, Armando Alejandro Estrada with Umaga. And it is just a bloody mess. It's a masterpiece of a last man standing match, which are not easy to do because you have that mic gimmick of, do you give up? No, it's so much of that. You can use the mic too many times. Umaga wasn't a talker at the time, as we know. And Umaga was with him every step of the way, an original bloodliner, if you will, or a previous bloodline member, if you will. And this match is absolutely fantastic. And you can see elements of Solo Sikoa and even a Jacob Fatu in what we see from Umaga in this match. Obviously, a lot of family connections there, but they go at it. And the rope choke out is so good, using that top rope to choke Umaga out. And it's a last man standing match where he can't answer the bell. And I know I was referencing the matter. Yes, I know it's an I Quit match, but I Quit and last man standing are so similar because you go to the mic when somebody's down, just like you start the count when somebody's down. And, I get to 9 and back up. But this match where it's 23 minutes and they beat the hell out of each other and it's ugly and it's violent. And you know what? It's hard to do last man standing matches when you can't get that level of violence, where blood does add to the match. I recently talked about how Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens had a last man standing match in the Thunderdome to qualify for Money in the Bank years ago. And it's so damn good because they get everything out of the stipulation that they can, despite not being able to bleed and maybe get to the level of violence that, was allowed before that and was indeed allowed after that. Maybe more so even these days. But Cena Umaga, number 4, last man standing from Royal Rumble 2007, is a fantastic match. A great example of Cena being able to adapt to the environment at his absolute best here. This is one to watch. Let's stay up with the violence. Let's go back. Let's go forward 5 years, in fact. Extreme Rules 2012, the pay-per-view right after WrestleMania that year. In Miami. Cena had just lost to The Rock. He's standing in the ring at the end of the show the next night. The heavily rumored return to WWE happens in the form of Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar comes back. Now, if you didn't know about it at the time, he comes back by himself. I know Brock Lesnar, other than what's happened in recent years with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar is, when you saw him since the comeback, which happened here in 2012, he was typically with Paul Heyman until Paul Heyman ended up with Roman Reigns. When Brock comes back in 2012, he's by himself. And he walks in the ring that night, and he F5s John Cena, and Miami's going nuts, and it is a Raw After Mania crowd. It's the right crowd for the return, and that leads to Extreme Rules 2012. So Cena had just lost to The Rock, which is a very important point to make. They're going to go back at it the next year, and it's not going to be as good at WrestleMania 29. But how do you get Cena back? Well, you put him in there with Brock. I wrote this down when I was kind of putting this list together. I said it's the best fight in WWE history. And it is a fight from the jump. There is a spot to the outside. And for those that didn't see it, I don't want to go in too deep, great detail because it's so good, where, I mean, it It looks like a fight from the jump. It looks like they kill each other right away. And there's chains and there's steps, and it's a hard way with blood. I mean, it is an absolute brawl. Nothing looks realer on that card than that match, because nothing could have been, because Brock brought it. Brock had not been in a WWE or F ring in such a long time. I guess at that point it would have been, he left in 2004, because Mania 20 was 2004. He had been 8 years since he had wrestled in a WWE ring. And this was a different presentation of Brock Lesnar. This was the MMA shorts with the Jimmy Johns and all that stuff. The Brock Lesnar from 2022 to even present day was different than the original version of Brock Lesnar. Original version was next big thing with the tights and more wrestling character stuff and weekly appearances on television. The Brock Lesnar that showed up in 2012 and has been around, on and off ever since then, was MMA Brock, was UFC Brock, was real Brock, if I could put it in such a way. And him and Cena have an absolute fight. Now, Cena wins this match, which I think most people disagree with that, because Brock had just come back. Why would you beat him? And I don't think they knew what they really had with Brock Lesnar and started to learn it. And then he's able to get Paul Heyman by his side, and obviously things change in a very different way over the next couple of years. And obviously ahead of their SummerSlam match, which I thought about putting on here, but that's more of a moment. You know what? There might be a top 5 John Cena moments video coming in the future, so keep an eye out for that. But Cena Brock, Extreme Rules, 2012, an outstanding fight. Cena fighting for his life and being able to do it. Cena's a big, giant dude himself, but you think of him in a wrestling way. Brock Lesnar went in there to fight John Cena, and that's exactly what they did. Happening in Extreme Rules, bloody weapons. It looked ugly. It didn't look pretty. It didn't look planned, if you want to, really pull the curtain back. It looked like they wanted to kill each other. And Cena, more so Brock trying to kill Cena, Cena fights for his life during that match. It's an ugly, fantastic fight. You should go out of your way to watch. Extreme Rules 2012, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. No championships on the line. But man, if you want to feel something in a match, you want to feel every hit, go watch that one. Brings us to number 2. Fast forwarding 4 years. In the Barclays Center, SummerSlam 2016, AJ Styles against John Cena. There's a soft spot for me with this match because I had always been an AJ Styles fan. I had met the man. I'd followed his career in Ring of Honor and followed his career in TNA. Met him in TNA. He's synonymous with that brand. And, he had gone to New Japan and did such great work with the Bullet Club and became IWGP champion from the jump there. And was over. And finally was getting a lot of interest. And it was at the time where it was like, is it really going to happen? Is AJ actually going to end up in WWE? The one true, great, unbelievable wrestler of the late 2000s into the 2010s. Is he finally going to make it to WWE? A guy who was on Nitro, who was in WCW in the last dying months of the company, who had a chance to come to WWE and said no because he didn't want to move his wife, who was starting her own career. The opportunity came back around. Here you go. Here's AJ right here. This actually exists. This is an AJ Styles Nitro figure when he wore the maroon tights. He was on the 2001 roster. He was battling for the Cruiserweight Tag Team titles. Air Raid, Air Paris, all that stuff. Would he ever get the chance? And he does. And he ends up in the Royal Rumble. And this feud starts because AJ turns on Cena and joins Gallows and Anderson. And these two battled because, there was the 6-man match with Enzo and Cass and the club, and Cena won at Money in the Bank. But they come back at 2016 at SummerSlam. And it was one of those matches that if you had watched AJ Styles and had watched John Cena and followed their careers, you went, well, AJ won already at Money in the Bank. They're not going to do it again. They're not going to let him beat him again. It's not going to happen. Because I actually thought back to the year prior. Well, Owens beat him once. It won't happen again. And it didn't, which was kind of a bummer. And I remember the arguments. Well, he made him on that night. Okay. But this was one of those like, well, he's not going to lose again. Cena doesn't lose twice like that. That just doesn't happen. And they go out there and they have an outstanding SummerSlam match that lived up to the billing of it being a SummerSlam match. And they do it at Barclays. They do it in Brooklyn. So that crowd is behind AJ Styles. And they crush it. I mean, they have a great match. And I know I mentioned earlier the Royal Rumble 2017 match. And people do think that's better, and that's fine. I understand why people think that one's better. I understand that it should theoretically peak with the end of the feud. And if you want to say it did, I'm okay with that. I think it's a personal call because AJ won. On a night where AJ probably would have gone in as the underdog. If you were a betting man or woman, you would have went, well, Cena hasn't beaten him yet. AJ's he's got to lose one back. And he didn't. And he beat Cena. And as we know, AJ would go on to become WWE champion until they would meet again at the Royal Rumble in 2017, where Cena would win the title back, only to drop it to, as I mentioned earlier, Bray Wyatt, before Bray would go into a feud with Randy Orton and the bug projector anyway, we don't have to talk about that. But I wanted to look because I knew the three matches they had off the top of my head. And I said, well, wait a minute. I know they were in multi-man matches before, and they were in that Elimination Chamber match, and they were in that right after Bray won the Chamber match, he had a triple threat with Cena and AJ that week of SmackDown and won again, and they were really trying to get him over, and he was over as a babyface, and they did all stuff with Randy. It just didn't work out. But I looked and I went, okay, so after the Rumble, it's AJ 2, Cena 1. And I looked, and Cena beat AJ in about a 23-minute match in Los Angeles in 2018. So they came back to it a year later. The one-off. So, in terms of televised matches, because house shows really don't count. In terms of televised matches, Cena 2, AJ 2. I recently did an episode of The Wrestling Mat where I discussed people that I'd like to see John Cena face or get in the ring with, whether it be Randy Orton or CM Punk or someone new like Gunther. And a lot of people were talking in the comments, and I appreciate all you guys for doing so, and nobody brought up AJ. And as I was putting this together, I went, Cena AJ one more time, especially where AJ's at in his career right now. I think I want to see that one more time. Cena's got 36 dates. I hope AJ gets to be one of those dates because they're 2-2. The all-time WWE superstar, the guy who was meant to be the WWE superstar, meant to carry the company, meant to hold the top title, John Cena, and then AJ Styles, who would seem like would never make it to WWE and is now past 8 years in the company. Two guys that we never thought would cross paths, had unreal chemistry. And as we come up on 2025 with John Cena announcing his career winding down and AJ probably not being that much further away, they're 2-2. I think we need a fifth match. So far, to recap, number 5, John Cena, Shawn Michaels from Raw, April 23rd, 2007. Number 4, John Cena, Umaga, Last Man Standing, Royal Rumble 2007. Number 3, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Extreme Rules 2012. Number 2, John Cena, AJ Styles, SummerSlam 2016. Which brings us to number 1. I don't think this is a surprise. I think this is the most important match that John Cena ever wrestled. In fact, I think it's the most important match for the career of the man he faced. maybe it's not John Cena's most important match to his career, but I think it's the most important match he ever had in terms of historical significance. And those are two separate things. To what it meant to the wrestling business, I think this is John Cena's most important match. And it's certainly the most important match to his opponent, and that is CM Punk, and that is Money in the Bank 2011. And that happened in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, at whatever you want to call it, at that old wooden building that has the best acoustics in the history of professional wrestling, with a crowd that featured me, who lived in the Atlantic City, New Jersey area, who said, I don't have a lot of money. I'm young. I was 26 years old. But I watched what happened when CM Punk did the pipe bomb and made me feel something about wrestling I hadn't felt in a long time. And doing so with John Cena in a rubble in the ring while wearing a Stone Cold shirt. The promo that birthed Squared Circle Reddit. The promo that everybody was talking about. The promo that I went on Facebook that night and said, if you haven't watched wrestling in a while, CM Punk just turned the world upside down. And if you don't know who he is, go watch this. I think I posted the clip. And what that would turn into. CM Punk, who was told, and watch his documentary, Best in the World, you're John Cena's TV program. You're John Cena's TV program. When he was feuding with The Miz and the stuff with The Rock and all. Yeah, he'll just, and by the way, at that Mania, CM Punk steals the show, or has one of the show-stealing matches with Randy Orton. And he'd been leading the new Nexus and all that stuff. And there were elements of this feud that dated back to the year prior when Cena was trying to get out of the Nexus and Punk was doing commentary and he knocked over the diet soda, and that got Punk out from commentary where they put him because he was a good talker and very good at commentary. I hope we get Punk on commentary again at some point down the road. But that started the feud, and it didn't go that far and wasn't about WrestleMania, but then came back around because of Punk's contract expiring. And all of a sudden, the wrestling world was lit on fire because you had the company guy who women and children loved and men hated, CM and John Cena, taking on the guy that real wrestling fans. And I'm saying that as part of the story. I know wrestling fans like John Cena and CM Punk, or real wrestling fans also like John Cena. My point is, he's the guy that's not supposed to be the guy. He was the anti-hero. He was the voice of the voiceless. This company's not going to go with someone like me, who looks like me, who acts like me, who wasn't the clean-cut, kissing baby, shaking hands John Cena. But CM Punk galvanized a fan base that was thirsty with his words, which made him a massive star in the making. When he made it very clear, and they tried to renegotiate and the stuff with Laurinaitis and Vince and all that. You can't control me. And now you need me because I get this title match. I earned this title match. The fans want me to have this title match. We're doing it in Chicago. And I'll tell you something, from my time working there, sometimes this stuff works out well because it's planned out well. And sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle and the talent carries the creative. That happened. They talked me, a 26-year-old, know-it-all wrestling fan who watched everything, who read everything, who followed everything, who knew too much to enjoy shows, and I admit that was a fault. But I wanted to know. I wanted to read rumors and stories, and you name it, I can get my hands on and read about it, listen to it on a podcast, whatever. I was engrossed in it. But as always, what it comes down to, are you going to get people in the building? Are you going to get people to open their wallets, plunk down money for the pay-per-view? Are you going to get them to plunk money down to buy a ticket? And you know what? CM Punk single-handedly make that happen. I bought a ticket. I flew out of Atlantic City. I flew into Chicago. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I stayed at a hotel not near anything. I walked 6 miles because I was so close. I had to get around Chicago. And believe me, a little different times back then in terms of navigating. I didn't realize that the arena was nowhere near Chicago proper. It wasn't there at all. But when I got there and I walked in the building, I knew I was there for something special. And I bought that CM Punk shirt that he wore that night. The shirt that they sold for one night with the date on it. That if I bought a second one, would have paid for my entire trip because I saw what the prices were going for on eBay. And I was supposed to go with someone and it never happened. And I went by myself. And sure, call me a loser or whatever. But I'm happy I went. Because not only was that match good, that entire card is fantastic. It's so good. There's a Mark Henry Big Show match on there that's good. The ladder matches are good. Everything's good on that show. But the reaction when CM Punk comes out, to have that much of a home field advantage. RVD had it at one night stand. The only thing that's in that even category, probably outside of Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico, is CM Punk in Chicago for Money in the Bank 2011, where every single person, other than a couple of those super fan dorks, wanted to see CM Punk win the championship. And Cabana's in the front row. I think it's Ace Steel, right, is in the front row. Much different times. Punk makes the entrance. And I mean, that crowd with those acoustics in that building, it made it big. I've said this to people. The 2 best crowds I've ever been a part of are not Super Bowls. And I've been privileged to go to like 7 or 8 of them. I've been to some of the biggest sporting events of all time. Been some of the greatest moments of all time. I watched the Plexico Burris helmet, the helmet catch, the David Tyree catch, the Giants comeback in Arizona. I was there when the Bears blew that massive lead and then came back and beat the Cardinals, and Dennis Green's, we are they thought they were. I was at that game. I've been at some unreal moments. I've been very lucky in life. But I was part of the crowd when Dolph Ziggler cashed in Money in the Bank after WrestleMania. The next year or 2 years later. And I was part of the crowd at Money in the Bank 2011. And the Money in the Bank 2011 crowd is the best atmosphere of any event I've ever gone to in my entire life. It's the opposite of having a regret. I wouldn't have known what I missed, but because I went, I'm so happy that I bought the ticket to fly out to Chicago, to go to that show, to be in that building for one of the most special wrestling moments and events of all time, and special matches. With everything that was put into it, with the near falls, with the call, with Laurinaitis and Vince and the kiss, everything. It's perfect. It's CM Punk's most important match of his career. It made him. And I think it's the most important thing that John Cena has ever been a part of, because of what he represented, and he played the role well. And that's why we're celebrating his career, and we'll continue to celebrate his career into 2025, and hopefully CM Punk and AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, they all get another chance in some way, shape, or form with John Cena. But those are my top 5 John Cena matches of all time. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe. Please become a member at thewrestlingmatchshow.com if you're not already, because you get extra content just like this. And the good thing is I'll always be back to talk about wrestling even more. Stay tuned for more right here at thewrestlingmatchshow.com.